man alive. Does Jerry Rosberg love to talk or what? Orange and Blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Cecil, Lammey. Hope to be joined by Andrew Mason. They haven't yet opened the locker room, or they've been late in opening the locker room. So here we go, and here we are. Here I am, and listening to Jerry Rosberg's press conference from earlier today. 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 26 minutes basically. And mostly a monologue at the beginning from Jerry Rosberg. Very interesting, to be sure. It sounded like a veteran coach who never really got a chance to say much to the media, and he got to say a lot to the media today. So that was interesting. Denver Broncos, of course, traveling to face the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 17. That will be interesting there, as well as the Chiefs are chasing the Buffalo Bills to be the number one seed in the AFC. And because you had a little bit of fight a couple of weeks ago when you faced the Chiefs, I don't think the Chiefs are going to overlook you. Plus, like I said, if the Bills keep on winning, the Chiefs could win out and they're number two and they're playing in wild card weekend because there's only one bye now, now that more teams have made the postseason. So the number two seed means you're playing. You're playing at home, but you're still playing. Number one seed means you get that all important bye. So Kansas City is the type of team where they're going to keep the foot on the gas. And if you're the Broncos, there may be, and I hate this term just because it sounds morbid, but the dead cat bounce. You know, there may be some sort of bounce from the Broncos after firing Nathaniel Hackett. There may be a bit more freedom when it comes to Russell Wilson and, you know, the playbook and the game plan and all these sorts of things. Jerry Rosberg running the show that may unleash a little bit more with Wilson. Not necessarily that Hackett was holding him back. It's just that Hackett didn't fit. Wilson didn't have a good plan for Wilson. Wilson not playing good football either. So I don't think that even if there is a bounce from the Broncos and they play better because ding dong, the Wicked Witch is dead, like that's not good enough to beat Kansas City. Kansas City's just too good. So whereas Jerry Rosberg loves to talk when I'm flying solo, guess what? I love to talk as well. So I can go for 30 minutes as well, Jerry Rosberg. A little bit longer if you want me to. But either way, we got Orlando and Cecil tonight. So I'll be out in Lakewood this evening and checking out old Chicago. Anyway, interesting news items today. Starting with Jerry Rosberg, we'll get to the on-field stuff. Jerry Jeudy leaving practice with a trainer. Greg Dulcich not practicing. And what you see around the league now as teams are out of it with 2 games left. Not everybody. Even the Raiders are still alive. Benching Derek Carr, by the way. I'm writing about it right now in my Around the AFC West column, which is at denverfan.com. So, yes, the Raiders benching Derek Carr for the rest of the year, by the way, to go with Jarrett Stidham. They're still alive. They need to win out and then have some stuff fall their way. Probably doesn't happen. But as you can see, the Broncos are the only team in the AFC West that aren't alive in the postseason. They have 0 shot, obviously. And with their next 2 games being the Chiefs and the Chargers, they probably not going to win another game this whole season. You're going to have a 4-win season. 4-13, everybody. That sounds horrible. And even the biggest Broncos hater could have never guessed this. And it's something that in Greg Penner's press conference yesterday, Mason and I talked about it on the show. Like, you could tell, like, they weren't even planning on looking at the football side of things, but it's been so bad they had to step in, and it's been so bad that they had to fire a coach in season, only the 5th time since 1970, which was before I was born. And yes, I'm old, but either way, like, that's a long time ago, and it's only happened 5 times, Hackett being the 5th time. And the last couple of times in the league, it's been embarrassing. Urban Meyer, embarrassing. Bobby Petrino with his Dear John letter to the Falcons. That was embarrassing. And Nathaniel Hackett was completely embarrassing with his Happy Fun Baby Star routine and all these sorts of things. So it's back to basics for the Broncos. I think you should see them play better on both sides of the ball. The defense was abhorrent, obviously, on Christmas Day. Really the first time all season that you could say that, although I have been one to point out, as we often tell the truth on this program, and not everybody does, be careful where you get your information from. And I'm not just talking about the Broncos, but be careful because there's a bunch of spin and there's a bunch of PR and there's a bunch of it's the access game. When you make the team mad, they don't give you access. when you say what they like, they give you access. And it's been something that I've experienced. It's been something that Mace has experienced, and others, that will maybe tell those uncomfortable truths that the team doesn't want you to say or doesn't like that you say it. Never be personal in this job, but just tell the truth. And when you do that, the team gets a little upset at times and maybe won't give you that coach's interview or that one-on-one access that you request. So it's a very interesting game. It's a game that I wouldn't say I'm tired of playing. I just don't play it. Like, you can't lie to these fans. Even Jerry Rossberg brought that up in his press conference today. Like, Colorado loves football. Bottom line, this state, this region, Broncos country, they love football. And while there are some who are a little more moronic in the fan base, just fire John Elway when Elway doesn't do anything anymore. I would say a majority of Broncos fans are well versed in the knowledge of this game. So you can't lie to them. You can't fill them full of shut your mouth and have them buy it. So the best way to approach things with this fan base is just to tell the truth. And that'll make the fans mad that are upset that you don't just say everything's great all the time and you're so negative. No, I don't like being negative. I refuse to be negative all the time. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie to you. Everything's great. Russell Wilson's fine. Like, no, Russ is awful. He needs to be fixed. Can he be fixed? Yes. Is he ever going to be great again? No. You can make the argument he never was. Okay, I'm here for that. But I'd rather talk about solutions than sit there and just stare at everything and point at the stuff that's been wrong with this team. They're so wrong. They're so wrong. They're so wrong. Yeah, we got it. You got 4 wins. Huh? Dummy? Like, yeah, we figured it out. Hey, guys, the Broncos aren't any good. So how do they correct things? Jerry Rossberg in his monologue today revealed some things. The decision to fire Dwayne Stukes was on him. Stukes and the special teams have been bad. They're 32nd in the league in a lot of metrics that Rossberg, a special teams guru, ace, what have you, has been around for his entire coaching career. So they fired Dwayne Stukes. That had to happen. They're going in a different direction. And watch, I bet Montreal Washington looks better this week. If the confidence hasn't been shaken for the kid. And everyone knows I'm not a big Montreal Washington fan. I don't mind him. He's a nice kid. He's fast and quick and all that. But has his confidence been shaken? We'll see about that. So many interesting things said from Jerry Rossberg today. Our very own Andrew Mason was there. And Jerry had a little monologue or a lot of monologue in him, Mace. Like, it was very interesting, very revealing. Is kind of Jerry Rossberg did kind of a brain dump to start things off today.
Yeah, he basically talked for a full 10 minutes. I've got a couple of theories on that, but one is put yourself in Jerry Rossberg's shoes. You never really expected to have this moment as an NFL head coach. And in fact, he gave quite the response when I asked him about whether being an NFL head coach was an aspiration for him, in which he started talking about coaches that are basically just trying to build their resumes when the actual resume is what the guys are doing out there on the film. And so, I mean, I love that response.
Beautiful.
But when I heard that, I ruminated on that for a moment, and I came to this conclusion. He never really expected this to happen. 4 months ago, he's not even thinking about football. He believes his football life is basically done. He's working on stuff with hyperbaric chambers, things like that. So here he is now. For the next 11 days, he is the Broncos head coach. He's going to have that platform today, tomorrow, Friday, Sunday after the game, next Monday, next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then after the Chargers game. And I feel like he's going to use this to get to share stuff. That he may never have this type of platform again in his life,
right.
But he's going to maximize it and share his thoughts on football, his thoughts on coaching, everything else, and at the press conferences, and then with the team behind the scenes, try to make a good prideful acquittal of himself and the team as a whole for itself in these final 2 games. I mean, this This may be the only shot. It's going to sound like Eminem. You get one shot, one chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
This basically is it. And so in press conferences. We may get Professor Rosberg. We may get some borderline TED Talks up there. And I think we'll see something different. I'll tell you this, Cecil, this was really interesting. During the open to media period of practice, Nathaniel Hackett really struggled after he gave up the play calling reins in terms of figuring out what to do. What's his role in practice? What's his role on game day? You know, I remember, I think it was last week, he's running scout team routes against Pat Surtain during an individual period on Friday, right? I mean, but Jerry Rosberg today, he went right over the tight ends and was coaching. Like the thing is, when you're the head coach, even if you're not calling plays, you're the head coach. You can and should go to every position group over the course of a week's worth of practices. And you know what? And you guys share what you think. You're the head coach. You're the boss.
Coach him.
I very much got a sense today that Jerry Rosberg was a boss running this team and coaching as a head coach on one practice day, having been on the job for basically 48 hours, that he grasped that far more than Nathaniel Hackett did when he was trying to find his way when he wasn't calling plays.
I think it was fantastic because, like we said yesterday, Mace, we rarely get a peek through these keyholes, and Rosberg is like giving us this full view, almost a microscopic view, and I'm here for it. If it's TED Talks, I'm here for it. I'll replay it. I'll fall asleep to listen to Jerry Rosberg talk about football. But he said firing Dwayne Stukes was his decision, and then it was kind of interesting, the Butch Berry thing. Like, I really like Butch. He's a nice guy. Debatable, depending on who you talk to. But like, he just wanted a different direction for the offensive line. So again, interesting clues. We'll get to Judy and Dulcich and all that a little bit later, but interesting clues from Rosberg today. Yeah.
And I'll tell you something interesting in the locker room. I asked Alex Singleton about Rosberg being in there. He said Mike Mallory was running the meeting, but Jerry Rosberg was definitely a presence and was sharing his thoughts on the special teams. And so I asked him, had Jerry Rosberg been in those meetings before at all? And he said, not that I know of. He said it may have been like lurking in the back at some point, but no one on special teams noticed that he was there for any of the meetings. So that I thought was actually really interesting. And I posted it on Twitter. DMAC had the video from the Stukes press conference back on September 29th.
Right.
When he was asked
when Rosberg was hired.
Yeah. It was a week. It was a week after Rosberg came in, and Stukes was asked specifically about whether he kind of seek out advice from Rosberg, and he basically said, "Hey, I've got Coach Mike Mallory, special teams assistant. I've got Joe Camillus can pick up the phone," and he said that Jerry Rosberg was there for game management. So it was very much an answer of like, they brought in Jerry Rosberg to help somebody else, not me.
Right.
Whereas looking back on it, it's probably clear that Dwayne Stukes probably needed some help and guidance. And who knows, maybe if he had sought that out from Jerry Rosberg, maybe the fate could have been avoided.
I brought it up to begin the show, and I hate this term. It's kind of the only way that it's there. But so if you have a different term, let me know, because I hate using it. But the dead cat bounce. Right. There's probably going to be a bounce. I bet special teams is better this week. Kansas City's not going to sleep on them based on the game a couple of weeks ago where Broncos put up a fight, and it's Kansas City. They're trying to chase Buffalo, but I think we should see a bounce from Rosberg and the guidance. I don't think it leads to a win, Mace.
No,
I think we'll see some tighter, better things from the Broncos.
Well, we'll get to the injuries here in a bit, and I think that's why you're probably not talking about this game being a win potentially.
Right.
But would it surprise me at all if they won the Charger game at the end of the season? No. And the Chargers might be playing for something very meaningful in that game. As long as the results this weekend are not Ravens win, Chargers loss, the Chargers can have a chance of playing their way into that number 5 seed. They still need the Ravens to lose once, but 2 Charger wins, 1 Raven loss, or 1 Charger win, 2 Raven losses. That means the Chargers would have the number 5 seed, and that's significant because it means instead of going to Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati in the first round, you're going to Jacksonville or Tennessee. We know Jacksonville's playing better, okay? But where would you rather start in the playoffs? Would you rather potentially go to Kansas City in round one, or would you rather go to Jacksonville? I mean, I think it's obvious. So as long as you don't have Chargers loss, Ravens win this weekend, the Chargers will come into Denver playing for something. And yet it wouldn't surprise me if even in that scenario, the Broncos won that game.
Yeah, we'll see what the Broncos can do with Jerry Rossberger on the show. By the way, it's going to be Tyler Huntley again this week against the Steelers. So
Steelers playing for something all of a sudden now, too.
I know, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Derek Carr getting benched. It's wild times in the NFL, that's for sure. But
Mike Tomlin might keep the streak of no losing seasons alive.
I know. Who would have ever thought that the way things started and, Pickett banged up and oh my God. Anyway,
he should get some coach of the year votes, by the way, but that's another story entirely.
He should. He's not going to be available, everyone, for people is Mike Tomlin going to get fired? No.
They're not that stupid.
The Steelers have had 3 coaches in our lifetime. And I'm older than you.
They're not stupid enough to fire a Hall of Fame coach. And yes, Mike Tomlin's a Hall of Fame coach. They're not going to. Yeah. They're not letting him go.
No doubt.
Unless again they're dumb. And look, and if they did get dumb and parted ways with Tomlin, he's at the top of everybody's list.
Yep. And Broncos, even if you have a coach that did a little something, you're thinking about firing your coach, you can go get Mike Tomlin.
Right. So that'll have to remain a dream. But boy,
yes.
I like dreaming sometimes. Yes. And I am a Mike Tomlin fan.
Yes. And that's why the Broncos should be open to whoever impresses them. Because remember, it was never supposed to be Mike Tomlin. The Steelers had another plan in place. And Mike Tomlin was so impressive when they interviewed him. They're just like, let's make Mike Tomlin our head coach.
Okay, but I'm going to give you a counter to that. I'm going to give you 2 counters to that, actually.
Okay.
3. Josh McDaniels, Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett. They nailed the interview. And Vic Fangio, for example, gave the death by inches answer. And that resonated right here with John Elway. Because he looked at a team where guys were getting later and later for meetings and nobody was doing anything. Looked at a loss of discipline. And so Vic Fangio is there at a restaurant on the North Shore suburbs of Chicago, and he's talking about death by inches. And that's hitting in John Elway and everyone at that dinner right in the feels, right in the heart. And then Nathaniel Hackett demonstrating himself and conveying himself as someone who was the polar opposite of Vic Fangio in terms of relating to players and all that. And so be careful on falling in love with a candidate based on the interview. You have to do due diligence there. You can't react too much to the interview. I admit, maybe I wouldn't have hired Mike Tomlin because I'm a body of work guy. But then again, Mike Tomlin's body of work coming in was already pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. And no experience though as a head coach. So don't be so quick to write off guys without experience, D'Amico Ryans, etc. We'll get to all that.
But this team probably
goes on.
Right. But this team, for what it needs, and kind of in the sense that I think you and I are both getting from kind of peeling back the layers of the onion here and trying to dig into this, I would be very surprised if it's a first-time head coach.
Oh, Greg Penner basically said it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It basically said it wouldn't be. I'm just saying, be open. Be open. Because Mike Tomlin changed the Steelers' plan.
Be open, but be careful.
Mace with that caution, right? See, I'm going all hog wild. Mace is like, hold on. Wait a second.
Look where the Broncos are right now. I mean,
look who's been making decisions for him. Joe Ellis should not have been making any decisions for this team. I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis. I like Joe. But when you say no to Mike Shanahan because you don't like him, allegedly, or whatever I have to say, come on. Come on.
As someone who worked in the building while Mike Shanahan was here, there were in the past, there were other issues, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
There were reasons why that couldn't happen at that time.
Okay. Sounds like you and I need to have a couple cold pops, and you can tell me more off air. But,
is this your way of trying to get me out to the live remote tonight?
Come on out to Old Chicago. We're in Lakewood off Union and 6th. I think it is. Is it 6th? Anyway.
It's one of the Lakewood spots.
One of the Lakewood spots. But either way, tell us about what you wrote at denverfan.com. Jerry Jeudy leaves practice. and then Greg Dulcich
Didn't
hamstring
practice.
everybody. And as someone who reports on the whole league, this is the time of year where guys just get shut down. And I'm reporting on it with other teams. Like, okay, hey, this guy's been a little bit banged up. They're just going to shut him down. If they're not in it, probably going to shut him down. I don't know if that happens with Dulcich, but let's discuss.
Let's face it, with Greg Dulcich, she's already had hamstring issues. And so danger Will Robinson on this one. I'd be surprised if Greg Dulcich played on Sunday. And thus, beyond that, because he's already had the hamstring problems, and because no matter what happens, he is a key part of your plans on offense going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a very real chance we've seen the last of Greg Dulcich for the 2022 season. Jerry Jeudy, I want to kind of see where things stand tomorrow. I mean, that was not a good sight seeing him kind of going back into Broncos headquarters, but he was around the locker room after practice. So that I'd say just kind of sit tight on that one and wait. But Dulcich not being out there, not a good sign. And also, very interesting, I mentioned Jerry Rosberg working with tight ends. Very specifically, he was working with Albert Okwuegbunam. And I've been hoping to see Albert O more involved in the game plan. Maybe this is the week it happens.
Yep.
Would not surprise me, especially if Dulcich doesn't go.
Right.
You need a pass catching threat. Get him out there. You're going back to the state where he made his name, Kansas City, of course, in Missouri. He's a Missouri Tiger. Hooray, hurrah, and a bully for old Mizzou. So, you know
At least
what?
we don't have to hear about Drew Lock being a Chiefs fan anymore.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Or Shane Ray having the tattoo that had the KC Arrowhead, the Royals logo, and the Sporting Kansas City logo. So, you know. Whatever. But anyway.
Yeah, whatever.
That's where no Randy Gregory out there today, but that's
got the suspension reversed. That was odd.
But that's big for him, because the suspension you're talking about his salary divided by 18. Now that doesn't include the signing bonus, but it's still a pretty substantial amount. So that certainly helps him out. Baron Browning not practicing today as well, so that your edge rusher complement was looking a little thin as a promise today.
Yeah.
By the way, did you like Jerry Rosberg's press conference? I imagine
I enjoyed it greatly.
I did too. I thought it was tremendous. I am looking forward to asking more questions of Jerry, philosophical type of questions, not just like football. Now, that being said, Tom points out Hackett 15 minutes late, Rosberg 15-minute monologue. Based on the schedule given to media, yes, this was 17 minutes late. Now, the thing is, the Broncos have a different internal schedule, so just to clarify on that one, but I still, you know what? I hope next year one of the things that does change is that things happen when they're supposed to happen. Yeah.
Get back to the Broncos way. So the Broncos were always that way. And we've been through a few coaches. You worked there with Shanahan, McDaniel,
Mike, Gary, John Fox. The only time things were off with John Fox, but it was reliably because every fourth week, at the end of the season, end of the quarter, they do a longer film review, and it would be an hour later.
Yeah.
On Monday. Other than that, it was like clockwork. With Coops, clockwork. With VJ and Vic Fangio, things generally happened when they were supposed to happen.
Even when Jack Del Rio filled in for Foxy, like it was still clockwork.
This year, in terms of things being on a schedule and it being a little bit of a fluid entity, the schedule, it was the worst it's been since McDaniels, and I don't throw that term around lightly. So, And I just want to see a consistent schedule. Little things like this are where it starts, right? Little things like this is all where it starts. Look, I mentioned Vic Fangio, death by inches. I think that was one of the wisest things that Vic said. For all that Vic did wrong as a head coach, what he said about death by inches was exactly right.
Right. That's where it starts. You got to be better than that. The Broncos will see improvement this week, not to a win, but we just want to see improvement, and we want to see that talent come through. And special teams, I'm especially looking forward to.
Yeah, I am too.
Montreal Washington's confidence cannot be crushed. If it's not crushed, then they might have something there with that young man. And Lord knows for me to say that about Montreal, but what do we do on this show? We're going to tell the truth, and that's the truth.
Yeah, we got to, as the old song would go, they like to sing at Wisconsin football games, got to build him up, Buttercup.
Wait, you didn't go all sing-songy on us, though, because it's like,
why do you build me up, Buttercup, babe, just to let me down. I need you. So build me up, Buttercup. Don't break my heart.
Oh, yeah. See,
gosh.
Now the Broncos are going to be walking around in the field house, be like, who's singing in that room?
Hey, we got a little pep. Let's have some pep in our step today. Let's get some, let's get some pep in our step, some ants in our pants, some, a little bit of liveliness here. All right. I mean, come on, let's go.
Come on. Hungry hippos. What? I don't know. But anyway, I was just thinking of board games. Think of all we can learn from Rosberg.
Yeah.
If you don't like this, you don't like football, basically. Like if anyone in the media is complaining, like, oh, he just goes on a monologue and blah, blah, blah. Like, no. Shh. Don't interrupt him. Let him talk.
I know at least a couple of people that were complaining about it, but they weren't out here. They weren't out here.
Okay. All right.
I know a couple of people on our air complaining about it.
I don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't like to hear that.
I don't know what they said. I just saw it on the digital text chain. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, whatever, but I loved it. I look forward to hearing more. And oh, by the way, there is a possibility that Jerry Rosburg may be more than a short timer, not necessarily as a head coach, but let's go down the path where maybe the Broncos do get Jim Harbaugh, right? We know how close Jerry Rosburg is with John Harbaugh. Just saying, if Jim Harbaugh is the Broncos coach, I would not be surprised to see Jerry Rosburg have a very significant role on his staff.
It's got the Harbaugh connection.
Right.
And who doesn't want that resource? That's why I love talking to old scouts, or anytime, Mace, years ago, and God rest his soul, anytime I got to talk to Ted Thompson, you just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
You let those guys talk. So when Jerry Rosburg is talking about football, if you love football and you want to learn about this game, because you never stop learning about this game, you let guys like that just talk.
Yeah. And you listen, you let them talk. You listen because inevitably, if you listen, you're going to learn more because you're going to want to. I listen and then I want to ask something more, right? So, yeah, this is. I think it's in this really bonkers season, and I'll admit, like I did walk away thinking just when I thought the season couldn't get any weirder, because man, I did not expect to be coming out here and effectively be engrossed by a professorial lecture. Okay. And I mean, engrossed. I loved it. There were a couple of times where I had to kind of stifle myself from chuckling, because I'm like, how on earth did we get here?
Right.
And that's what was going through my mind. Like, how in the world did this season go to where it is at this point where I'm getting a graduate level lecture from on football, and I'm hearing this guy get up there and tell the world what he really thinks about the careerists, the ones that are just trying to move up the ladder in coaching rather than focusing on where you are. I'm gonna go Star Wars here. I'm gonna go Yoda. I think when Rosberg got up there and was talking about coaches fixate on their resumes rather than their job, I could hear Yoda up, telling Luke Skywalker, all his life he looked away to the future, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. And so maybe it's just on some level. I always loved Yoda. I have a thing for old sage philosophers. Jerry Rosburg's in that tradition. Bring it on.
Bring it on. Orange and blue today. Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason here for you. 3:30 p.m. every day, except are we off Friday, right?
We're off Friday.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we're off Friday. It's very possible I might be on the road driving to Kansas City at that time.
You didn't book Southwest, did you?
I did.
Oh my God.
I did.
Wow.
I think I might be hitting the road, Jack. I think.
Well, it is an 8-hour drive. It's a nice drive when you get to the rolling hills, like the flat part of Kansas, just whatever, cruise control. You get to those rolling hills closer to Kansas City. It's nice. It's a nice drive.
I'll tell you, it's. I mean, that's the cherry on the bleep Sunday of this season is having to drive to Kansas City rather than fly. But at least we have that option. I mean, if the Broncos were playing
Miami.
Jacksonville, if they're playing Jacksonville this weekend, well, you know what? We ain't going.
Right.
So, and I'm glad I'm here. Poor Romy Bean just got back, and Brian Madden from CBS Colorado, they just got back into town today, and Romy was told she can't go look for her bag, that her bag is still in Denver. And not only can she not go look for it among the thousands and thousands of suitcases that are sitting there at DIA, but oh, by the way, they have to send it back to LA and then on back to Denver before she can get it. What kind of stupid world are we living in where you have to do that? It makes no freaking sense.
Wow. Lots of bad advertising out there for Southwest.
You know what? There's a greater chance of Jerry Rosburg being the head coach next year of this team than of Southwest Airlines high-level executives being on the job in 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a bloodletting over this. I have never in my life seen an airline melt down in the way that Southwest Airlines has in the last few days.
And so rapidly too. Like Frontier went down, but not like this. This is like instant. Like nobody fly. Anyway, that's your airlines report with Cecil Lammey and Andrew Mason.
Hey, one thing that I guess is positive, like in terms of some of my other travel, Southwest Airlines doesn't fly to Madison, so I don't have that problem. I fly United to Madison, but United often has its own share of issues, so who the heck knows?
Right.
Anyway, so we beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past, as F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote at the end of The Great Gatsby.
From Yoda to The Great Gatsby, with a little buttercup, whoever sings that, sprinkled in there as well.
So build me up. Buttercup,
baby,
don't break my heart.
Let me down. Turn it around. I feel like we're Dumb and Dumber when we're driving. Mock. Yeah. Bird.
Yeah.
Bird. Yeah.
Mockingbird.
Have you heard?
What's the other movie that song was used in when they were singing in the car?
I can't remember.
National Lampoon's Vacation.
Very good. Very good.
And the kids put on their
boy.
and at some one point they sing it, and at another point they sing Jimmy Crack Corn and I Don't Care, and the kids put on their headphones and listen to the Ramones.
It sounds good. He's Andrew Mason. I'm Cecil Lammey.
Gabba gabba hey, baby.
That's the way we do it. All right, everyone. That's a wrap. Come out to Old Chicago. If not, join us tomorrow, 3:30 right here. Mace, Cease, OBT, BFD. Thanks. And as always, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned and please stay frosty.